the problem in most detox cleansing circles is that there isn't enough of a preempting of a release of the accumulation before it gets that bad. So if we understand, we can say as a group that we understand that when symptoms come up, it's because there's an overload of accumulation. The body's speaking to us saying, there's stuff in here that doesn't belong here. It's fermenting, it's putrefying, it's proliferating pathogens. Please, can we get it out? And we answer, yes, of course we'll get it out. Let's go get some water and, have some intestinal lavage and rinsing and colonic, high colonic, enema, peroxide enema, whatever it is that that you want to do to get it out. If it's effective for you, you get it out. When you preempt the detoxification symptoms, the cleansing crisis symptoms, you can avoid them largely. I mean, you might not always avoid them. You might not always be able to, anticipate just before exactly when it's going to happen. But for the most part, if you keep a pretty good system of whatever it is for you, weekly colonics or biweekly colonics or twice a month, whatever it is for you that works, that seems to keep you out of trouble, keep you out of pain, keep you out of symptoms' way, then you should be able to avoid the pain that comes with it. We should not have to endure a lot of cleansing crises because we have our colonics. If we didn't, then the detoxification process would be so arduous, so painful. I mean, it would probably just not even be recommended. I would say just go about your life and don't make more trouble, but try not to draw up the old trouble, because if you draw it up and you can't get it out, what's the point? What's the purpose? It's going to recycle in your body, resettle, and it never come out. So the only reason to begin the cleansing process, the first part, which is the awakening, is because the release can follow. If there is no release, or if there is inadequate release, or if the release is, the body desires the release before the release comes, then you have this healing crisis. Okay, so that's where we have the Herxing reaction comes up, and so if you're, remember, with exercise, a lot of things are happening that could lead to the awakening, the part of the equation of detoxification that is the awakening process. So we have awaken and release. So in exercise, there's a huge amount of awakening. So it's no surprise that there would be a lot of resulting Herx mode, Herxheimer reaction, cleansing crisis kind of responses coming up in the body after exercise. If you've preempted that by consistently doing your colon cleansing and making sure you're not maybe doing too much too quickly, or what you're doing in terms of awakening isn't supported, making sure that it is supported rather by enough colon cleansing, then you'll be okay. But if you're not doing that, and you're doing all this exercise, and you're drinking the green juices, and you're doing all these things that will awaken, then it won't be a surprise to have these Herxheimer reactions. Okay, so what I would suggest is a few things. One is make sure that the intestinal cleansing is increasing to keep up with what your body's ready and able and being asked to awaken and throw off. That's number one. Number two is that if you have these reactions after exercise, don't look at them as a bad thing. Look at them as, oh, okay, the exercise is doing its work. It's waking all this stuff up. I'm having all these reactions. They're really painful, but it means that my body's strong enough to wake them up. Now, your job is just to do the requisite cleansing to make sure you can release what it's awakened. So the rule of thumb is really about 48 hours is the time that you want to get to that waste. After 48 hours, it starts to really resettle in the body. So if you have all these reactions coming up, get thee to a colon hydrotherapist, a good qualified colon hydrotherapist, or if you're adept with your own home cleansing system, then of course you can do that. But make sure that you get this stuff up, and that which the body's drawing up leaves. And that's all this comes down to. So having these reactions is not a bad thing. It's giving you information. What you do with that information is going to indicate, or is going to determine how quickly you're able to get out of that healing crisis and into higher levels of health. Okay, so let's see. And then, it's a great thing. Killing the pathogens through the exercise, it's powerful. And then the body wants to throw them off. So there's a way, it's so complex and fascinating, but sometimes we release pathogens when they're still in their alive state. They're still active. They're kinetic. They're doing their thing. They're reproducing and all their wonderful nastiness. Not wonderful nastiness, but revolting nastiness. And then other times we are releasing them when they've been exterminated, but the body's still just throwing them off in their exterminated state. So what you can wind up having happen is, usually it's both, because if you've been doing the requisite cleansing, they're being suffocated by the oxygen in the alkaline foods, and you're extinguishing them in your intense workouts. When you're feeling that burn, you're burning them off, and then they're leaving. So they're going to leave in multiple forms, but they're typically, here's the rule of thumb is the poisons hurt on the way in and they hurt on the way out. And that's just to expect things to be a little unpleasant some of the time is to get through it all a lot easier. It's like anything. If you know something's going to be hard and you're expecting it, then you can deal with it. If it's surprising, you're like, oh, what is this? Then you're caught off guard. It's like when the element of surprise in a fight, that's what throws somebody off. And then even if they're a great fighter, they may not be able to respond properly because they were not trained in the element of surprise. You're being warned, you're being forewarned, so you're not going to be surprised. So when it happens, you're like, oh, this is normal. This is supposed to happen. But it's not supposed to be debilitating on a regular basis, because that only means that you're not communicating you're not reading your body's awakenings well enough to keep up with them with the releases. So you'll need to get better at that. If you're finding that it's always a hard slog, it shouldn't be. It should be, okay, I know my body's pattern. I know that if I eat this way, I'm going to have this much of an awakening occur. So I need to have this much of a release happening. And sometimes your body's going to have excessive amounts of voltage, and it just decides, maybe it has to do with your moon cycles. Often women will find there's so much more energy after they have had their menses, and they'll suddenly have a great big release after that. Often the bowel's activity, its peristalsis, will increase on the second or third day of bleeding, and that's just because there's so much more power in the body to release. So sometimes you'll have more to release than you're used to, and if you don't get it out, then you may have some symptoms. I think this is, hopefully I've made that clear.